Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Proposed Minimum Requirement. Today we're looking at last Epoch. Anyway, they require quite a old CPU. For Intel it's i5-2500 and AMD side is the FX4350. This is really old. For the memory, 8GB is required. For graphics we have a GTX1060 and I'm assuming it's the 6GB variant because they also require RX580 with 6GB variant. I don't think that exists. I think it was only 8GB, but that's why I'm assuming the 1060 is the 6GB variant. You need 22GB of storage and SSD is strongly recommended, so I guess you can still play on the HDD. Welcome to Respawn PC, I'm Dunk, let's game on. Before we start, a quick reminder that not long ago, like February 18, the minimum requirement was the same CPU, but it was a GTX1060 Ti, not the 1060. Same go for AMD, it was the R9 270, not the RX580. The 1060 was actually the recommended GPU to play this game, and the RX480. And you can still find those minimum and recommended settings to play last Epoch. But we're going to go with the official one from the Steam with the release of 1.0 of last Epoch. For our testing, I'm going to use the Intel side, the i5-2500, and the Nvidia, the GTX1060 6GB, obviously with the 8GB of memory and SSD just to load things faster. We're going to do the test at 1080p at medium settings, which is the default detected by the game, and because they did not specify which resolution and which preset you should use to reach which FPS. The FPS will vary a lot depending if you're inside, outside, nighttime, daytime, and also with the density of monster and magic you're using. So like in an open space, daytime with a lot of color and a little bit of monster, we reach an average of 92 FPS. When you go inside a dark enclosed room with a few monsters, we can reach 103 FPS. And other place, in the open space, you can drop to 63 FPS with a higher density monster. And GPU usage will vary a lot depending on the scene also, between 80% of usage to 97% usage. The VRAM of the GPU will be hovering around 4.8 to 5 GB when you are at medium settings. The CPU is running in the 70 of utilization. And for the memory, we are at the 6.8 to 7 GB of RAM. So we straight on the pin for the 8GB requirement. But I feel we still have some headroom for visual quality. I know we're not really far in game and we didn't met a huge pack or herd of a monster, but I'm pretty sure we can squeeze a bit more visual quality. Other than that, this Diablo-like is way more colorful than Diablo himself. That's a nice change in pace and taste. And just for trying, I decided to push it to high settings presets without using any FSR. And with the 1060 6GB, we still have a nice FPS. It went as low as 59 inside in the dark with average amount of monster, I don't know what is a lot in this game, and as high as 93 FPS in a bright area. I have no idea what the proposed minimum requirement should achieve which result. So at 1080p, high settings, that's the result. But there's probably a reason that the 1060 was a recommend setting and now it's a minimum settings. Maybe further in game, when the density of monster is way higher, who knows the reason that the 1060 6GB became the minimum requirement instead of the recommend requirement. Just someone that is end game, the card won't perform as good as they were expected, or the end game is not well optimized. Who knows why the minimum requirement changed a couple days before the version 1.0. That's a game that will be able to play on a lot of old hardware. I'm pretty sure you can lower the CPU and even lower GPU, like 4GB or 2GB card with a lower resolution or lower settings, like low or very low, and maybe at 720p. You can play at the 1GB card. This is extremely budget game because you can play on a lot of PC. That's how you make money as a game developer. Starfield! By not limiting who can play the game because of their hardware. That's what the dev should look is the Steam chart. Say, okay, right now is the RTX 3060, the card the most used on the market. At least base their game on the top 10 GPU on the market. That way they will maximize the number of copies they're going to sell their game. At least I feel it should be a baseline to follow. Anyway, back to the proposed minimum requirement. The i5-2500, 8GB, GTX1060 6GB. It's a winner if you want to say that you don't care which FPS you're going to get and which resolution. But if it's playable with those minimum settings, highly recommend. Also recommend the game. So if you were hesitant to get the game, to get something different than Diablo but still similar, this is a good choice. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching.